Blog Talk Radio.
Franchise interviews from Easton, Pennsylvania to Sydney, Australia. You're listening to Franchise Interviews. Franchise Interviews. Welcome to Franchise Interviews. Franchise Interviews has been giving an up-close, behind-the-scenes look at franchising and entrepreneurship. Listen to interviews with franchisers, franchisees, franchise authors, franchise experts, and attorneys. And now, welcome your host, Marty McDermott, and Franchise Interviews.
Hi, everyone, and welcome to a very special edition of Franchise Interviews, where for over 11 years now, we've been asking the entrepreneurs one-on-one. I'm your host, Marty McDermott. I'm the president of Franchise Interviews, and we have a great show today. We're meeting with Steve Rothenstein, the Senior Director of Vice Franchising at Dippin Dots and Doc Popcorn. And when Dippin Dots CEO Scott Fisher acquired Doc Popcorn in 2014, he needed to empower a leader to combine the two franchise models and expand the perfectly balanced snack co-brand. And we're going to talk to Steve about that in just a moment on Franchise Interviews. So stick around because we have a great show.
The Stone Coat Franchise Opportunity. Are you looking for a unique and lucrative franchise opportunity? If so, take a look at Stone Coat. With a patented process which creates a true stone finish on almost any wall or ceiling, Stone Coat is a true game-changing product in the multi-billion-dollar construction industry. Stone Coat is applied faster, cleaner, and cheaper than conventional quarried stone, which saves both time and money. With advantages in remodel and new construction of both residential and commercial projects, Stone Coat is a true crossover product. The Stone Coat franchise opportunity provides a low startup cost, low operating expenses, comprehensive training, ongoing support, and no royalty payments. For more information on the Stone Coat franchise opportunity, go to www.stonecoatfranchise.com. That's www.stonecoatfranchise.com, or call us at 972-380-2700. That's 972-380-2700.
Hi, this is Connie McDermott, Administrative Assistant for Franchise Interviews, LLC, and you're listening to Franchise Interviews.
Franchise Interviews from Easton, Pennsylvania to Sydney, Australia. You're listening to Franchise Interviews. Franchise Interviews.
Hi, everyone, and welcome back to a very special edition of Franchise Interviews, where for over 11 years now, we've been asking the entrepreneurs one-on-one. I'm your host, Marty McDermott. I'm the president of Franchise Interviews, and as we were saying earlier, we have a great show today. We're meeting with Steve Rothenstein, the Senior Director of Franchising at Dippin Dots and Doc Popcorn. And when Dippin Dots CEO Scott Fisher acquired Doc Popcorn in 2014, he needed to empower a leader to combine the two franchise models and expand the perfectly balanced snack co-brand. Hi, Steve. How are you? Welcome to the show.
Good morning, Marty. Thank you so much for having me today, and really thank you for the kind introduction. It's truly been my honor to be part of the team that has brought together this groundbreaking co-brand venture for the last 4 years.
It's, when I was reading about it, Steve, when I first heard about it, it really seems like the two brands really do complement each other, so I thought it was really, it's kind of like a match made in heaven. Maybe you could talk a little bit about, the history of Dippin Dots and, a little bit about Doc Popcorn and, how the two actually came together.
Yeah, absolutely. This year, for both brands, we're celebrating two pretty exciting anniversaries. This is the 30th anniversary for Dippin Dots. Began back in 1988 with our founder, Kurt Jones, who just had a love of ice cream and was doing some other work in the microbiology field and realized that this would be an awesome way to make people happy and put smiles on folks' face. A lot of history on the Dippin' Dots side. And this is the 15th anniversary for Doc Popcorn, which grew out of an idea for a healthier snack option and grew out of Rob and Renee Israel's love for popcorn and started their venture out in Denver. Back in July of 2014 when we closed the deal to acquire Doc Popcorn. Like you said, it just makes the sweet, the savory, the saltiness. I mean, that's a trend that's been around for a few years now just in the culinary world, and why not bring it to the snack world? And we saw the opportunity. We loved the brand, loved the people when we went out there and worked. And it was as much about the right product, the right time, as it was the right people to bring together.
It seems like, and you've been doing this such a long time now, Steve. It's funny, when I was talking to my wife, she was okay, well, who's on the show today, and I mentioned Dippin Dots at first and then Doc Popcorn. She remembers, having Dippin Dots, like, as you said, 25 years ago, and I didn't realize. I said, oh, my God, we're getting old. I said, the brand has really been around quite a long time. And, that says a lot in franchising, too, though, doesn't it, Steve? Brands that have, 30 years plus, that's quite an accomplishment, isn't it, in franchising?
It is. I mean, there are some, franchise stalwart brands, especially in the ice cream industry that, I'm a Northeast kid, even though I live south of Nashville now. I grew up eating Carvel ice cream, so I'll throw them a shout out just because I grew up eating it. And Tom Carvel was certainly one of those founding folks in the franchising world, creating so much what we have today. And the feeling of nostalgia when you've got a brand like Dippin Dots that's 30 years old, that you remember the very first time that you had it, just elicits this emotional response. And what we're loving now is the folks like you and me that ate it, and your wife that ate it when we were little, are now able to bring this feeling, this emotion to our kids. And it's like the second generation, it's the second coming of this wonderful thing. So it's really, it is a blessing to be able to work in this environment for me, for sure.
That's fantastic. And you have a background, too. Your background is very impressive, Steve, in reading it, But maybe you could talk to our listeners about, like the benefits of co-branding. We haven't talked a lot about it in, almost like 12 years of doing the show. But there are tremendous benefits to co-branding, isn't there?
Absolutely. And if you do it right and you've got the right brands that make sense, really can get those benefits. So what we know is that traditionally Doc Popcorn has been a mall-based kiosk type opportunity. Dippin Dots has been in malls for the better part of the last 20 years as well. Right. And we know the mall business is certainly in a state of transition. I'm not a gloomy kind of guy or naysayer, so I call it a state of transition. The malls are still going to be around, and we're excited to work and partner with some of these great mall operators out there. And when you can put those two brands together, you eliminate the reason for someone to walk somewhere else. Not everyone wants ice cream today. Not everyone wants popcorn today. But when you've got more opportunity and you can put it into a relatively reasonable size space, so you're not impacting on your fixed costs, and you could run it with the same number of staff if you just had one brand and not two, all of a sudden you're just increasing your opportunity for sales and revenue. And what's wrong with that?
Sure, of course, absolutely. I think that's fantastic. Since you've been with the company, Stephen, I don't know if my numbers are up to date to this point, but it looks like you've facilitated the addition of 68 new franchise agreements, thousands of new points of presence around the United States, and now you're even serving, I think it was 2,000 plus schools. Maybe you could talk a little bit about that, because I thought that was interesting.
Yeah, so when I came on board at Dippin Dots, we had just been acquired by Mark and Scott Fisher, who are, by the way, not just because they're the owners, are just phenomenal people. I'm saying that because I truly feel that way, and I'm happy to be working with them. But we relaunched our franchise program, and we've been very cautious on how we've been adding new franchisees to the system. We wanted to make sure that they were the right folks in the right places at the right times, and we've been focusing on growing with our existing franchisees. So we've added only 68 agreements over the last 5 years, all the while more than doubling our overall franchise business in terms of revenue. And that's pretty exciting. I was a franchisee myself once a number of years ago, so I recognize how powerful it is when your franchisor wants to grow with the folks they have primarily and focus in that direction. In any given day, you can find Dippin Dots in 10 to 15,000 places around the country, literally, from every major ballpark to minor league ballparks. This time, we're talking baseball, but we're in the NHL, the NBA. Our franchisees are in something north of 10,000 fairs and festivals around the country. Wow. We are in every state fair, I think, this year, but one or two. And, yes, we are in the state fair of Alaska, which we do quite well. And so you can find us there. You can find us in convenience stores where our franchisees have a grab-and-go program. So when you're on your way out, you just grab a pack. And then most exciting, we are in it's 2,000 schools where we're actually selling at some point during the day, whether in a convenience store on the school or after-school activity. But we're also, even more exciting, we are in more than 1,000 schools where we are serving our product in the cafeteria line because we are Smart Snack approved. We've got a wonderful line of yogurt products that actually meet all of the requirements for pretty much everywhere across the country. So the kids can actually get a nice treat that is healthy for them and is good for them, they love during the school day. It's a pretty exciting opportunity for us. And it's just great. Wherever you go, you see us, but there's still some places you haven't, and so that's what we're still working on.
Yeah, I mean, the market is really so big. I mean, when you think about it, I mean, you said, 2,000 schools, Steve, I mean, but I mean, really, there's thousands. As you've emphasized the word opportunity, and I had to mention to you, too, that my son last year, I took him to his first baseball game, and, when it came snack time, his first snack was Dippin Dots, by the way. So it was, you're right about that. And he loved them, by the way. So it's really fantastic. Have there been, like, other synergies, of the two brands coming together, Steve? It's a word I love to use when I teach my business students. Is the synergy, but I mean, like maybe like as far as like technology goes, or what other synergies happened when the two brands came together?
Absolutely. You get the benefit of each brand's mistakes, right? Franchising is almost a business where you make the mistake once, hopefully you don't keep making it, you learn it, and then you get to improve upon it. So you get the benefit of that learning. In our case, the learning that happened primarily in Paducah, Kentucky on the Dippin Dots side, and then in our other case, right, the learning that happened through Doc Popcorn coming out of the Colorado, Denver, Colorado area. And so you get to put those things together. So when you look at technology, there was, Dippin Dots was one of the first brands to really embrace Facebook years and years ago. We still have more than 4.5 million followers, and we're just very active in that space and always have been. And it's one place where we know that people can connect, they can see where we are, and you can continue that emotional feel. And we've expanded through that in all other aspects of social media, and that's been one of the big places. And then on the technical side, what a franchisee cares about is that we can go and work with vendors and say, look, not only are you getting Dots brand, the Doc Popcorn brand, but you're getting this big umbrella of folks that just have such passion for the brand. So when we look at digital menu boards, we're not talking about a small company. We're a pretty good sized business that has a very big appeal, and that helps us across all of what we do.
Fantastic. What's been one of the most interesting things that's happened to you, Steve? Because again, you've been in franchising, such a long time now. Since these two brands coming together, does anything stand out? I mean, I'm sure you have hundreds of stories, but what's been one of the more interesting things that you might have seen since Dippin Dots and Doc Popcorn has come together?
I think the thing that still impresses me, and actually you validated that for me today, and it's when people hear Dippin Dots, they have that emotional connection to some moment in time. Yeah. Your son, now I'm assuming it was a Phillies game that you took him to?
It was actually a minor league baseball game, yeah. So we have the minor league team for, I think it is the Phillies actually. They call them the Iron Pigs out here. That was his first experience with a baseball game, and it's interesting as you say that because that's what he remembers most about the game is not who won the game or who lost the game, he remembered the Dippin Dots, and it was just interesting how you used that word emotional experience, and that's what he's probably going to remember 20 years down the road is Dippin Dots. He's not going to remember the ball game.
That's exactly it. And the Iron Pigs are that's one of my personal favorite names of the minor league teams that we service out there because they're just fun. So we're real familiar with it. But that's what gets me the most about Dippin Dots is there is absolutely nothing wrong in the world with an industrial cleaning franchise or a franchise that weeds your garden or kills the mosquitoes. There's nothing wrong with those. Those are phenomenal businesses, great things. But there's an emotional connection here, and you see that with Dippin Dots. And then for the places that Doc Popcorn has been around, you actually feel that there too. One of the things when we had our co-brand location out west, and a customer came in, they actually had a tin. We have popcorn tins that you've seen, but it was one of our original tins from almost 15 years ago, because you can refill it for just a couple of dollars in most of our locations.
Right.
And they brought in the very original tin, and they refused to let us replace it. We tried to get it from them because it was this tin they first put together 15 years ago, and they're still carrying it around. And you don't do that just to save a few dollars. You do that because an emotional connection to the product, and I'll tell you, the connection you have with these two brands, it's growing, and the more we put them together, the more powerful that connection will be, and the more that we just continue to put smiles on people's faces and make people's day better. I mean, who goes to have a bucket of popcorn or a cup of ice cream and is not looking to have fun or celebrate something or some positive feeling?
Yeah, you're right. I mean, those your products are associated with those experiences, those wonderful feelings that you remember decades down the road. And my wife was telling the story about that last night. So I mean, I think it's really amazing. So you meet with a lot of prospective franchisees, Steve. What do you typically look for? Like, what types of characteristics do you look for in your franchisees?
No, sure. First and foremost, you've got the financial responsibilities. You want to make sure that they're qualified, that they understand this business model that we're getting into. But we're also looking for somebody that's going to have the same passion for the business. They don't necessarily have to be a mom and pop operator, right? I mean, those are great folks, and there's an opportunity for them as well, and we love them because they're engaged in the business every day. But you want to make sure you've got a franchisee or a prospect that recognizes the power of the brands, that it's not just something else to do, because they need to have that passion, because you want them to enjoy it. Because I will tell you, when you get into this time of year and you run through, barely Memorial Day through Labor Day, you are as busy as all can be. You are booked every single day of the week, whether you've got a permanent location, a seasonal location, or you've got a route business on the Dippin' Dots side. And just when you're ready to take a breath, you run into back to school, when all of a sudden the malls are really kicking into business, and with Doc Popcorn primarily in the malls out there, you go right from back to school sales right through the holidays. So it becomes almost a full year business. And so you're looking for folks that understand that, recognize that, and are ready to have the passion to do it. It's not a difficult business. Serving ice cream, popping the kernels, it's not hard at all. But it takes a little bit of passion, and that's one of the things that we're looking for.
That's what I was thinking with the training, Steve. I mean, the training must be, not to oversimplify it, but I imagine that the training process must be interesting. How does that work? I mean, do they come out to headquarters then? I mean, once you decide, that they are a match for both brands, how does training work?
Sure. So we have a discovery day, and once we bring them through the process, we're pretty confident that if we invite them in for discovery day, which happens in Paducah, Kentucky, that we're pretty sure that everyone's a go, and that this is the last opportunity to ask questions, to validate what we feel and what they feel. So at the end of the full day discovery day, everyone kind of looks at each other and says, all right, we're good on this. And, there's a general agreement, a little bit more detail than that. We then will sign the franchise agreement, and that would generally be on a Monday. Training then starts Tuesday morning, and then we'll train for a few days, focusing on their initial direction, whether it's fairs, festivals, the true co-brand location, the non-traditional co-brand where we're working in convention centers, and just other opportunities. We'll focus 2 or 3 days of training. We've got a wonderful co-brand corporate store right next to our franchising offices, and we do a lot of in-store training, role-playing, and there's the technical aspect of how do you pour the dots, how do you clean your freezers, how do you make sure your kettle stays looking shiny while you're popping all day long. Once they're done training, we send them off, and generally at this point we've got a good idea of their location, their initial location. We'll probably already have a letter of intent from a mall in our hands that we're working on. So it's a relatively short process to get them open into a store. When they open up, we send both of our training teams out. The Dippin' Dots team and the Doc Popcorn training team will go out, and they have an integrated training program. So we get the owners, their managers, and their folks ready to go and ready to put smiles on people's faces. Like you said, it's not challenging in regards to the type of information to learn. There certainly is a good amount of information, but it's so easy because it's just fun, right? I mean, you're putting smiles on people's faces. Who doesn't
And that's the enjoyable part, isn't it, Steve? Because we have a lot of different types of franchises, on the show, of course, tax franchises, automobile franchises, and they don't, unfortunately, sometimes they don't get to share in that experience, right? If you have to replace someone's transmission or, somebody owes money on their taxes, but this is a fun franchise that, of course, you have the opportunity to put a smile on people's faces, and I imagine that's a rewarding part of the franchise as well, isn't it?
It is. I mean, look, that's what brought me to this company. More than 5 years ago now, was that opportunity to be part of that, to be part of a great brand, and that was when we were looking at other brands to acquire. What really attracted me to the Doc Popcorn opportunity, seeing the passion that's on that side, and yeah, look. My kids have known me as the ice cream man pretty much since 2004. I've been in different brands. Then, like I said, I was a franchisee of my own for a few years, and so they've always known me as the ice cream man. It's something that I've relished. And actually, not to throw a plug out there, but if you go to my LinkedIn, I've got a little story sort of about my history on that, and it's kind of a neat little story that I'm pretty proud of. But talk to prospective franchisees and say, look, here's how it impacted my family and my kids, and what they've learned over the years working with me. I've got two high school girls now. One is actually about to graduate, and they've both spent years working in whatever business I was in. They love it. They do special events for Dippin Dots now. They can do all the popping, and it's just it's the education that they're getting above and beyond the school textbook education. That's phenomenal, that they'll never forget. But just spending the time with them and letting them see what it is to have an impact on people has been really it's been really great.
Yeah, that's fantastic. I'm gonna have to check out that article. So you have such a long history in franchising, Steve. You've been a franchisee. What advice would you give to our listeners? We call them aspiring entrepreneurs. Most of our listeners are pretty. We think they're pretty new to franchising. They have an idea in their head that they want to get into franchising. And as you know, there's so much out there today. We find that a lot of them are very confused in the beginning. It's kind of like information overload. From everything you've learned, over the last several decades, what advice would you give to our listeners in their quest to buy a franchise?
First and foremost, you have to have a passion for what it is you're looking to do. If you don't like ice cream, you should not be looking at ice cream franchises, even if it's a great opportunity from a financial perspective. Right. You have to love what you're doing, because you are going to spend so much of your time doing it that if you don't love it, that if it's not a passion, it'll become a burden. So step one, love the thing that you're looking at. Numbers are so important. Financials are so important. History, all of that. But if you don't love it, if you don't have a passion for it, it's not going to be the right opportunity for you. And I will tell you, we meet people, and if I ask them, I always ask the question, what's your favorite ice cream flavor? And if they can't answer that question with some emotion, that's a check mark on the wrong side of the page. And so it doesn't knock you out, but that's one of those things. So you have to love what you're doing. You've got to do your research. You've got to see the good, the bad, and everything in between that's gone on with the brand, so you're aware. There's only so much that we can tell you, franchise professionals, just because we're governed by the franchise disclosure rules, right? So there's only so much that we can share. We want to make sure that you do all your research. You need to talk to franchisees existing. And every one of us, everyone in my role, encourages that. It's required for you to do that. So you've got to reach out to those folks in the system. You've got to feel comfortable with what you're getting yourself into, and I put it that way on purpose. Again, because it becomes, I won't say a lifestyle, but it becomes all-encompassing. And if you can't manage to do this and still keep a balance in your life, then again, you got to really think and understand about that, because it does become a big thing, and it can be an exciting thing that helps you, really change your family tree, passing down not only the actual business but the lessons from the business. And then you've got to, and as you're looking at it, I also tell people, okay, so think down the road. You've renewed your agreement a couple of times. You're ready to retire. What does that look like? What is your exit strategy? So I actually try to get people thinking not only on the way in, but what's your goal here? Is your goal to build a monolithic brand, this giant thing where you're the biggest franchisee of Dippin Dots and Doc Popcorn, you have 100 locations? or is your goal to have a family business, a few locations that you run and that you plan on passing down, to your kids? What's the end of that road look like? And that's not a bad thing. It's good to know what your goal is, so you're working towards it. So I think it's important to have that as well. It shouldn't be just, we're going to buy it and see what happens. I kind of like it when people have that long-range plans. Plans can change, but it's a lot easier to change a written plan than it is to go towards an unwritten thought, if you will.
Yeah, I mean, in listening to you, Steve, it's a means to an end, isn't it? I think it's so important to ask that exit strategy, and I always get the sense that a lot of people coming in, they don't think of that exit strategy, do they? And again, you've been doing this a lot longer than I have, but it's such an important question, isn't it? Is what do you want this franchise to do for you?
It really is. There has to be a goal. I mean, we are in business. There is this is not a nonprofit. So you do need to know. You do need to have a look at it, not just from the emotional side. And so much of what I've talked about was the emotional side of this. But you do need to have that end game in mind. And what does that look like?
Right.
There is only a few certainties in this world, and there is an end, right? And so you kind of want to know what that looks like, whether that end is moving on to the next and finding somebody else to take on your business, handing the business down, or what have you. It's just good to have those things set out on paper somewhere, and sort of check in with your goals from time to time to see how they're working for you.
Fantastic. So if you could look into a crystal ball, Steve, I mean, if you're looking like, maybe 3 to 5 years down the road, I mean, where do you see Dippin Dots and Doc Popcorn, as far as the plans for the future?
I think you'll see probably somewhere between 100 and 250 active co-brand locations, inline malls, kiosks, lifestyle centers, those kinds of things. And then I think what you'll see is more what I'll call non-traditional type venues, where you'll see us in event centers, special events, catering. You'll see us in this co-brand opportunity in more ballparks, because the popcorn is such a step up from the normal that you would get every day. So you'll see people be willing to pay a little more for a much better product. And I think you'll see that kind of growth continued. I also think there'll be other things that come across, our desks that say, hey, you know what, this might make sense too. This might be another thing to add to our opportunity. So the co-brand right now today is the Dippin Dots Stock Popcorn. Maybe there's a tri-brand in our future, or maybe it's a different co-brand for a different location. And so we're always got our eyes open for that next great opportunity. You never know what's going to come around. It could be later today. It could be 3 months, 6 months from now. But I just see continued growth. I think one of the things that I've been really proud of in the 5 years that I've been with Dippin Dots is we have a 5-year franchise deal, so we've already been going through renewals. And we have renewed 98% of all of our franchisees, meaning all of our franchisees, almost 100% of them, have wanted to continue this business beyond their first, second, third. We've got folks in our business that actually predate our franchise system that have been around and selling Dippin' Dots for more than 25 years. I mean, you talk about passion for a brand. You look at some of these folks, and they're running strong. They're doing their thing, and I don't see that ending. I see that being the continued trend, that the folks we bring in today, they will be here for decades and decades doing what we're doing today and more.
That's 98%. I mean, it's very impressive. I mean, it's almost 100%. And of course you always have like franchisees who are older and they just want to get out of the business. To say 98% or almost 100% is really it's quite an impressive number, isn't it? You don't usually see that. As long as I've been doing this and researching franchising, that number is really quite impressive, isn't it, Steve?
I'll tell you it is, and we've got some folks out there. There's a few of them that are of that older generation that try to convince me that they've been selling Dippin' Dots for more than 30 years. I kind of laugh. Say, yes, you have, even though it was, we're only 30 years old, because they feel so in touch with that brand. And we've got some folks that have been working fairs and festivals for 25 years and are still doing it today. And they would normally be what you would think would be the retiring age, and they are out there, from Memorial Day to Labor Day every weekend, just putting the smiles on faces, and it keeps them alive. And I talk to them and I say, what are you doing? And they say, no, we just love it. We can't, people look forward to seeing us every year, and I can't not be there, doing that. And that's what this is for me. That's what the opportunity is. It's that passion, that emotion. And, oh, by the way, it's a pretty good business to be in, too.
Right, of course. That's fantastic. What's the best way, Steve, for our listeners to get more information on Dippin' Dots and Doc Popcorn, as a co-brand opportunity? Are there any websites that they can go to get more information, or any phone numbers they can call?
Absolutely. I mean, of course, you can go to either brand's website, dippindots.com, or you can go to docpopcorn.com. Both of those websites will get you into our franchise process. Of course, they can email me directly. They can find me on LinkedIn. They can find me in all the different kinds of places. They can contact us, and there's a very simple form to fill out on the website, and we'll usually get in touch with you, usually within an hour or two, quite frankly, if you are interested in any part of our business, whether it's franchising or just wanting to sell dots in your location, and we do that too. We find our franchisees places and to help expand their business. So we're pretty excited about all that, and I would just take a look online. You find us, type in Dippin' Dots, and the whole world opens up to you, and you see some pretty amazing, some pretty great things out there. So we're anxious to chat with anyone who wants to put smiles on people's faces. I mean, we are about fun, and this is the fun time of year for us. We're very excited.
It sure is. Well, I really enjoyed talking to you today, Steve, and I'd already like to invite you back, in the next year or so, as you continue to grow, because I think this is a wonderful co-branding opportunity. So I look forward to following, the Dippin' Dots and Doc Popcorn, co-brand. I think this is terrific.
Happy to come back. It's been a great pleasure. Thank you so much for the time today, Marty.
This has been my pleasure, Steve, and we'll be right back with more franchise interviews.
Coming up on segment 2, you're going to hear what every franchipreneur needs to know before buying a franchise. We're going to play a clip from our popular Great Quotes in Franchising podcast right here on Franchise Interviews.
Are you looking for a franchise that delivers? Businesses will always need shipping, and for more than 25 years, loyal customers have depended on Unishippers for reliable savings and exceptional customer service. Unishippers is focused on just one thing: helping small and medium-sized businesses save time and money on all their shipping needs. And as the largest reseller of complete shipping services in the country, we have the buying power to ensure that we succeed. The Unishippers franchise offers low startup costs, no equipment or real estate required because they're not retail, residual income, and a quality of life and work-life balance. For more information on becoming a Unishippers franchisee, go to www.unishippers.com and click Franchise Opportunities, or call Franchise Development at 801-708-5822. That's 801-708-5822. Franchisers, are you looking to reach aspiring entrepreneurs looking to buy a franchise? Are you looking to reach a highly educated audience on franchising? For over 8 years, Franchise Interviews has been giving an up-close, behind-the-scenes look at franchising and entrepreneurship through our website, franchiseinterviews.com, where you can hear and read interviews as well as get tips from some of the most successful sources in franchising. Our weekly franchise radio show, where each week you get to hear a new interview with franchisers, franchisees, franchise authors, franchise experts, and attorneys, and our podcast, Great Quotes in Franchising. For more information, go to franchiseinterviews.com or call us at 610-905-2919. That's 610-905-2919.
Hi everyone, this is Marty McDermott from Franchise Interviews, and welcome to another edition of Great Quotes in Franchising, where each podcast you get to hear a great quote in franchising. Today you're going to get to hear from a legend in franchising. It was about months ago, Don and I were celebrating our anniversary of doing the radio show, and we put a lot of thought as far as who we'd like to have for a guest that particular day. And Don and I both agreed that that person should be George Nadeff, and Mr. Nadeff graciously accepted. For those of you who don't know George Nadeff, he's tagged as the guru in franchising. He's also the founder of Boston Chicken. He had a lot of great quotes that show. This is just one of them where George gives his advice to aspiring entrepreneurs looking to buy a franchise. Here we go.
Characteristics that make a successful no-fat franchisee.
Well, I've always told people to play to their strengths. If you have a personality is not a charming one, don't get into the service business where you have to interact with people. Because people business requires personality. So, you're not asking someone to do something that's against their grain. So when looking for a franchise, a person should consider the things that they've succeeded in. For instance, if they've been a coach of a soccer team and they had to inspire the kids to run down that field and kick that ball and win, there's something about that individual that is inspiring. So he should look for something that maybe can be along those same lines, that he can use those talents of his. If he's been a teacher, he's been a person that's worked with his hands. In other words, always play to your strength. Don't go into something that's opposite of your personality. That will cause a little bit of a problem. Of course, most companies offer training, but if you put a glove on, it should fit neatly in between the fingers. It shouldn't be something that once you put the glove on, you can't bend your fingers. It's as simple as that. So when you're buying a franchise, it should fit.
And I guess no fat specifically, you have a checklist you go down that you want each franchisee to be, or sometimes it's just having a feeling of a certain person?
It's clearly a financial issue. They have to have, in our case, pretty close to the ability to finance something between $500,000 and $600,000. So if an individual can't do that, then maybe he should look for other franchises like a Subway or a Quiznos or other that are around the $200,000. So again, here we talk about fitting something that fits their pocketbook and not get into something that's way over their head and put themselves in financial jeopardy by starting in something that is too hard for them to overcome. So again, it should fit their wallet just like it should fit their personality.
Right, absolutely. And you've, of course, been involved with so many franchisees with all your different businesses that you've done. Have there been times over the years that you sort of took a chance on someone that you weren't really sure, but you really liked them, and it's worked out? I'm sure you have a couple success stories.
Yeah, there have been those cases, and again, they've been the opposite. And again, you learn by doing the thing. I would much prefer to tell a person that he's not qualified than qualified. And the rationale behind that, of course, is that I don't want to get somebody into something that he's not qualified for. There are so many franchise selections out there that if a person's doing their research, it allows them the opportunity to really, really take the time and investigate. And most of these companies already have franchises in place. They can pick up the phone and call up the franchisee and say, how you doing? What kind of work did you do before you bought this franchise? Tell me about why you chose it. Would you do it again? I mean, this is a great opportunity as opposed to starting something on your own where you don't know whether you'll ever get the first base. Franchising in the beginning is very much like a baseball game. If you can buy third base as opposed to getting to first base, and getting to first base by starting your own business, maybe you'll get the first base, but there's no guarantee. But if you can buy a franchise, you at least can get the third base. That's good baseball. And when you get the third base, your chances of getting home is a lot easier than being on first.
Wow, that's a great analogy, isn't it, Don? Yeah, and it sounds like you're a Red Sox fan.
Thank you very much.
I love that quote from Mr. Nadeff where he says that, franchising is like a baseball game and it gives you the ability to start on third base. So, again, this is our second podcast, and again, we'd love to hear your feedback, and we'll see you again soon for another great edition of Franchise Interviews and Great Quotes in Franchising. Take care, everyone. Have a great day.